So welcome everybody. I'm coming to you from Wenatchee, Washington. I normally live in Boise, Idaho. My name is Lance Davison, and I am one of the core leadership team members that came together with a handful of folks to get this thing started, really in the middle of wrestling with COVID and all the craziness that was happening back in 2020. And since then, we have had 2 successful cohorts graduate, and we are offering our 3rd cohort registration now. So our goal today is to share a little bit with you about the Institute. Like I said, introduce you to all of us, and then get a chance to know all of you. So a few logistics. Myself and Meg will be your co-facilitators today. If you have any questions, please raise your hand at any time or pop into the chat and we'll catch that. We will have Q&A time at the end, but you don't need to hold your questions until then. And if you can, you'll notice our rename. If you go up to the 3 dots in the upper right-hand corner where you see your face, go down to rename and put maybe your first name and where you are from. I see Jim Webster, perfect. You're in Tennessee. That's great to know. And then we'll be off and running. I will popcorn over to Meg.
Great. So we'd love to just very quickly do some intros. So I'll model it and then popcorn to someone else. But my name is Meg Morgan. I am with the Root Nashville campaign, tree planting campaign in beautiful Nashville, Tennessee. So I'd love for others, if you wouldn't mind saying where you're from and your kind of professional title, but then also would love to hear very quickly your favorite place in nature. This is the green communities, and I think we all have that in common. So I will say what I'm trying to make my favorite place in nature is my yard. We have done a ton of tree planting and we're trying to convert as much turf grass to native plants as we can. So I'm trying to make that my favorite place in nature. We'll see, come back to me later. And I will popcorn to Phil.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Phil Bennett, and I am the Urban Forestry and Stormwater Superintendent for City of Snoqualmie in Washington. And I was a graduate of the Green Communities Leadership Institute this year, and now I'm fortunate to be on the leadership team. My favorite place in nature is a cedar grove along the North Fork of the Sauk River in the North Cascades. There's some cedars there that are several hundred years old, so that's a pretty special place. And I will popcorn to Tommy.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Tommy Sheridan. I live in Cordova, Alaska. I was a member of GCLI's 2022 cohort, and I'm now a member of its core leadership team. I am the Associate Director for University of Alaska Fairbanks Alaska Blue Economy Center. And my favorite place in nature, we're pretty lucky here in Cordova. We are on the edge of Prince William Sound, so marine inland sea, really amazing place. And then just to our east, we have the Copper River Delta. So we have both blue and green opportunities. And depending upon the weather and the mood that strikes us, those are our 2 favorite places, Prince William Sound and Copper River Delta. And so I will popcorn to Chris.
Okay, good morning. Yeah, my name is Chris Bobrick. I work for an environmental consulting firm called ECT, and we're located over in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I was part of the 2023 cohort. It's been fantastic. And my favorite place in nature is dictated mostly by sounds. So 2 of them. One is any snorkeling, any type of river, so the underwater sounds of rivers, and then a prairie, the sounds of wind through prairie. That's kind of my jam. And I will ask Lee to introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Lee Mueller in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I work for a ecological consulting firm called Davey Resource Group, which is a subsidiary of the Davey Tree Expert Company, which some people are sometimes more familiar with. And I had the fortune of attending the 2022 GCLI, which I absolutely loved. My favorite place in nature is probably Lake Michigan. and particularly maybe the Beaver Island archipelago, which is, it's got some people that live on Beaver Island itself, but all the other islands are pretty much uninhabited, and because of island biogeography, have really interesting ecosystems and are largely unspoiled. And I will popcorn over to Tara.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Sorry, my screen's really dark. I'm outside. I'm at the University of Northern Colorado today, helping set up for the Women's Tree Climbing Workshop. My name's Tara Costanzo. Let me start with that. I am currently a recruiter for the Davy Tree Expert Company, soon to be accepting a promotion for becoming an early talent specialist with the Davy Tree Company. And so got some moving up to do, which is really exciting. And my favorite place in nature is at the Colorado State University Mountain Campus in the Pingree Park Valley, about 20 miles northwest of Fort Collins, Colorado. It's a very special place, holds a special place in my heart, where natural resources and forestry students get to spend their summer learning how to do ecology, forest ecology, natural resources ecology measurements during their summer. And I got to help teach those courses over several summers. And yeah, it's a very special place. It's where I would go in the case of a zombie apocalypse. And I was in the same cohort as Lee and Tommy as a part of the inaugural cohort with GCLI. Oh, do I have to pick someone?
Yep, I think Paul.
I think Paul,
Yep.
Is that what you said? Okay.
Yep, thanks. Hi, Paul Reese. I serve as a senior instructor and director of the graduate certificate program at Oregon State University. And I'm one of the founding members of the core leadership team. I've been on it for 3 years now. And my favorite place in nature is probably Great Smoky Mountains National Park, which is the most biologically diverse forest in the US. Let's go with Mark.
Okay. Mark Cassini, Delray Beach, Florida. I'm the executive director of Community Greening, which is an urban forestry nonprofit. I started with Matt Shipley in 2016, so we've been doing it now about 7 years. And my favorite place in nature is definitely my yard. And I'm from Indianapolis, so I'm still getting used to, I've been here 15 years in South Florida, but just the ability to grow things year round is still just, I mean, going bananas and growing bananas, mangoes and avocados and sugarcane. And it's just awesome to grow all the time and be outside all year round. So yeah, even though Florida has a lot of many beautiful places besides my yard, but that's it. Who hasn't gone? I'll go with John in Calgary.
Sure. Hi, everyone. So yeah, I'm John Kozak. I'm based out of Calgary, Alberta, right along the Rocky Mountains there. So my favorite spot is Banff, Alberta, but that's like a whole town that I love because of the mountains. But locally, I'd say it's probably our bike trails that weave through a lot of the natural area parks within the city of Calgary. It's probably one of my favorite spots where I get to recharge and get some, exposure to nature. But yeah, excited to learn more about this and meet everyone here. I honestly haven't seen anyone else that wasn't introduced, so certainly you can come off the mic if I have missed you. But yeah, really excited by this. Thanks.
You got Jim there.
I may be last, but not, let's see, not silent. I live on Signal Mountain, which is just outside of Chattanooga, Tennessee, not quite 2,000 feet above sea level. I'm serving as the chairman of the tree board for the town of Signal Mountain. serve on the Hemlock Conservation Task Force and working with a group of folks to get our greater community certified by the National Wildlife Federation as a community wildlife habitat. We're about halfway there on the certification. I'm mostly retired, have a tech background, but my favorite spot, and I was rolling these through my mind, there's so many of them, kayaking with alligator infested rivers in South Carolina was fun, interesting. But I guess the most memorable outdoor location that I've been to several times is Slick Rock Creek. It's a wilderness area that runs along the boundary of North Carolina and Tennessee. The wildlife down there was incredible. Fishing was for wild trout. Not stocked was fun. But Tennessee's got a lot to offer. We are the most biologically diverse inland state in the country. Right here in our area, we're the second most diverse vegetatively, other than a spot in China. So it's just Tennessee's super. I'm glad to see you're going to be doing something in Knoxville in the spring.
Yeah, sounds like we have the Tennessee wave happening for sure. Our Institute in-person session was in Knoxville last year, and it will be there again this year. So thank you very much, everybody. It's great to see you all. We'll jump right into the programming, and I'm going to ask Paul. So Paul and myself are two of the founding core leadership team members. And Paul, can you explain a little bit about why you got involved in helping start GCLI? And
Sure.
also, why in the world does the world need more leadership opportunities?
Sure. Thanks, Lance. So the origin story for GCLI is that Lance and myself and Dana Karcher from Davie Resource Group and a couple others got together and said, it'd be great if we had a leadership training for people who already have some leadership experience and some leadership skills and some leadership perspectives, but to kind of help raise them up to the next level. And we're talking about, beyond just the organization they work for, or beyond just the specialization, whether it's trees or whether it's natural resources, or in Tommy's case, fisheries. And our idea was to kind of have to raise up some next level leadership for nature-based solutions. That's sort of our tagline for GCLI. And we set out to create something that we thought would help people's professional development and invest in them as leaders. And we use a very expansive view of leadership. Our curriculum is built around a 3-dimensional domain: personal leadership, organizational leadership, and community leadership. And we take community leadership to be very broad as well. That community might be the community in which you live. It might be the professional societies in which you circulate, or it may be the communities in which you do or need to engage in for nature-based solutions. So that's kind of the origin story of GCLI. It was conceived back in 2020 as a program that would help invest in the professional lives of people who are willing to go out and make a difference in the world for nature-based solutions.
Thank you, Paul.
And I'm going to jump in here with a question for Lance, as facilitator. He won't ask himself the question, so I'll jump in and ask the question here. But how did you get involved, Lance? And how would you describe kind of the working relationship of the core leadership team, and maybe how it's evolved since it started, and now that it's been a few years?
Yeah, thanks, Meg. And that's a great question. So I think what you'll find is, at least in my experience, what we're building with the Green Communities Leadership Institute is very different from most leadership institute and trainings I've been involved in. You'll see, it's exciting for me to see this core leadership team is made up of some of us that thought of the idea and started it, but a lot of people that have gone through the experience and have decided to step up and help us lead. So there's a few things that we do. One, we operate through a shared leadership model. So we have four different teams. We have a logistics team, a cohort team, a curriculum team, and a communications team. And each of those teams, you get into the weeds on a specific area of the Institute, and we run the Institute that way. But we're all super busy people. We're all volunteering our time. And so we really rely on kind of that shared responsibility, shared leadership, and shared accountability for making the work happen. So it's been really fun to develop that. The other thing that we tell everybody is we sure as heck are not the most experienced and the most perfect leaders out there. When you go through the Leadership Institute, you are our peers. We are learning just as much, if not more, from you as you're learning from us. So it takes a little while for people to really understand how that works. What we are doing is, one, we're creating you the opportunity for 3 months to focus. We have created a curriculum to help you have that experience, but it's really up to you how you use this time and space that we're holding for you to advance yourself to the next level. And so there's a lot of, we learn, adapt, and evolve every time we do this. It's really exciting. It's a loaded 3 months together, but we really work intentionally to, through the online learning experience, give you opportunities to get good content, to meet amazing people. But it's really up to you to build those enriching relationships so that when you're together in Knoxville come next March, that you make the most out of that. And I honestly believe that it's this community, the people in this room, Chris, who I didn't meet until a few months ago, that is now a professional colleague and friend, that we can work together. To me, that's how we step to the next level. That's how we really are able to face the challenges that we face with climate change and all the action that needs to happen to help save this earth, save ourselves for the next generation. That answer your question, Meg?
Perfect. And no pressure on everybody, right? We've just got the world to save.
We're just changing the world, nothing.
But like you said, yes, exactly. That's kind of the beauty of the shared leadership model, that we don't have to do it alone. And we kind of model that through the way GCLI is structured. So great. Thanks, Lance. So we've got a kind of series of questions here for our panelists, both core leadership team members and alum, and we'll kind of ask a couple of you to chime in on each one, but also want to make sure that we leave plenty of time at the end for Q&A from our listeners who've joined us. This is a Q&A session after all. But let's get right into it and kind of start at the beginning. I would love to ask Tommy, and then Lee, and then Tara, kind of what made you apply for the Green Communities Leadership Institute in the first place. Tommy, if you take that first.
Sure. So as people have referenced, it was in the middle of the pandemic. So for us, we live in a small town in coastal Alaska. And in 2020, I was the CEO for a large salmon hatchery company. My wife is a nurse. She was a nurse in a local clinic. And so, and we have young kids. And so it was an exciting, interesting time, very difficult to manage all things there. And we had no family in town. We had no childcare. There was no school. And so one of us had to make a choice, and I decided to stay home with the kids. And so for us, I wasn't much of a homeschool teacher, but we had a new dog. And so we went for long dog walks. And when I was doing that without the kids, I was really interested in taking that time and that opportunity to learn more about leadership. So I was listening to podcasts by Brene Brown and Adam Grant and Simon Sinek, and just delving into that. And in the summer of that year, Paul popped up on LinkedIn. The Matrix had figured it out. I'm an alum of Oregon State University, and I was just really drawn towards his background at Oregon State and really the promise of the program And so I went for it and involved in similar industries and whatnot. I was a little bit of an outlier, but what I found was that it was a perfect fit for what I was looking for. And really, really glad that I made that choice. So that's a little bit about my story.
Thanks, Tommy. And Lee, I'd love to hear from you on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there were two things that sort of attracted me to GCLI, and being the inaugural, right? There wasn't really anyone to pick their brains out about past participants. So one of them is, I saw the leadership team, and there were a number of people that I had heard about or had professional recommendations that they were great people doing great work. And that attracted me to maybe want to learn from those individuals, to meet those people and have some of those experiences. And I think that's remained true. I'm incredibly excited by each year the changes to the leadership team and the people on it. And I think hopefully that attracts a number of people in the future. The second thing that had me thinking about going through something like this is, early in my career, I had a tendency to essentially say yes to every single professional involvement and board opportunity. At one time, I think I was on 11 different boards or committees. And it just happened that about the time that GCLI came up, a number of those things were sunsetting. They had term limits, or, I had found some natural outs. And so I was starting to think about, like, how did I want to spend my time, particularly community leadership time, in a different and meaningful way moving forward. And I'm still working through some of that, but I thought that GCLI would be a great opportunity to start wrestling with some of those things, thinking about how I wanted to put some of my time and effort into things moving forward. So, and it was, it had me think about a lot of things, had me, question some things and, move forward a little bit differently.
Thanks, Lee. And Tara, what kind of made you want to apply for the Green Communities Leadership Institute in the first place?
So similar to what Lee had mentioned, I was pretty familiar with the majority of the folks on the core leadership team who had worked to put together the structure. And Paul had reached out to me prior to all of it coming together and asked for some feedback on the curriculum and asking for commentary on how to what someone who would be attending would like to see as part of the curriculum. And so I was very happy to provide some input as part of that. And then knowing kind of what the information that was going to be a part of the course was, I was intrigued, and I'm always looking to connect and build new relationships. During that time, I was working for Wyoming State Forestry Division as the Urban and Community Forestry Program Manager. So I'm always looking for new collaborative opportunities and relationships that could potentially benefit the agency at that time. So it just looked like an awesome opportunity to not only grow as a leader, but to have those networking opportunities and relationships that could potentially come to programs and bringing in new speakers for workshops and communities that could utilize those folks to, build new programs across the state of Wyoming. So that's what really inspired me to apply.
Thank you, Tara. And let's go to another series of questions. Let's start with Meg. What were some of your favorite sessions or speakers or experiences with the first cohort? So Meg and Lee, Tara, and Tommy were all members of our first Leadership Institute experience, which was in 2022, and it culminated with a session at Oregon State in Beaverton, Colorado? Corvallis. Or sorry, geez.
Yes, Corvallis.
Corvallis, Oregon. All right, I'm going to shut up. Meg, take it away.
Sorry, Lance, I had to miss that last part of your question. I think I know what you, okay, here we go. One moment.
So the question is, what was one of your favorite experiences or your speaker that you enjoyed through your first institute experience?
Sorry, I have my Google Voice number attached to my computer right now, apparently. So sorry about the noise. Yes, so one of my favorites that really has stuck with me was a session called Engaging the Unengaged, and it was presented by Maisie Hughes, who's with American Forests. And for that, it was both the content of what she was sharing, which was, making sure we're really reaching the people in the communities that we're working to benefit. That's something that is a daily part of my job. I usually describe my job as mostly community engagement. So that really stuck with me, both in terms of the content, but also the way she told that story and presented that content. It was very much based around centering around an individual and telling the story. And I've really kind of co-opted that model of how to tell stories. Is like, oh, you remember things when it's centered around a person, even when we're working in green communities and talking about the environment. So that's something that really stuck with me. And then in terms of experiences and kind of fun moments as being part of a cohort in a group where it's all kind of co-learning together. I was going back and forth over the course of the in-person sessions with another fellow cohort member, Lauren, who does kind of similar work to me, but is a little bit further along, also in Michigan, and was really trying to wrap my head around how we're keeping track of our data and how we're managing all of our various spreadsheets. And this conversation kind of spun into, after a session, us grabbing a couple beers in the lobby of the hotel and literally pulling out our laptops and looking at spreadsheets together, and honestly having the best time of doing that and comparing side by side. And it was some of those kind of off the record kind of conversations that now have led to us pursuing a new database and really affected my work in a very direct way. But it was also super fun. And Lauren and I keep in pretty regular contact now, which is really nice. So it was a kind of unintended and off curriculum fun moment.
I love it, Meg. Creating the time and space. Sometimes that time and space is around the watering hole. I think Tommy would like to share a little bit about a speaker that particularly reflected on him.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So I, of course, was a member of the 2022 cohort, and apologies if my connection is poor here. Zoom is telling me as much. But in 2022 and in 2023, my favorite speaker was Vicki Christensen. So former chief of U.S. Forest Service. In 2023, two of the sessions that she led was navigating differences as a leader and how effective leaders deal with change. And having worked for a natural resources management agency myself, relatively small, Alaska's Department of Fish and Game, I just was compelled by her story, rising through the ranks and ultimately leading one of the nation's largest natural resources management agencies was just inspiring. She brought such grit to her story, but also just this very real credibility. And that I just thought that was an amazing experience. And then engagement with the cohort. Certainly I loved being a part of the inaugural cohort in Corvallis. It was a lot of fun to go to Knoxville. I'd never really spent a whole lot of time in Tennessee. And then there was something that came about very spontaneously that was led by members of the 2023 cohort, a storytelling experience that Phil here was largely responsible for. And so both members of the cohort and members of the leadership team were encouraged to just get up in front of folks at a local venue and just tell a story. And I thought that was so fun. And I really, I don't want to spoil any surprises for future cohorts, but that would be a great thing to develop. So thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thank you, Tommy. We're going to dive into the cohort experience a little bit here now, but Mark, Jim, John, any questions as we're rolling along? We don't want to just talk at you, but we can keep doing that.
You'll probably get to it, but yeah, I'd like to hear. Shoot, I think I've been dumped out. My screen just went black.
Nope, we see you. We hear you.
Okay, well, I can't see any of you. So I'll talk to myself here. I'd like to know what you got out of it, what you came away with, what were you able to do, think about that you didn't do before. What's the value of doing this?
That is perfect, and that is coming up. I like it. Thank you, Jim. As we bridge to how GCLI has shaped your career and life, I'd like to continue on the cohort conversation and hear from Phil about something that surprised you about the cohort model and your experience last year in the Institute.
I guess I was surprised that the folks who developed GCLI, they felt like part of the cohort in some ways. So, you know, folks like yourself and folks like Paul, who've done a lot of leadership work, I felt like you did approach us as peers. That surprised me. And I appreciated that. And then I was also, I guess it wasn't surprise as much as just interest at the group of people that assembled together to form the cohort. They were from all over the United States. They weren't all necessarily associated with trees or urban forestry. And it was really interesting during the cohort experience to talk with people that I hadn't met before, people doing different work in different parts of the US, people with completely different perspectives. From that, which was not really, I think it's sort of a hidden part of the curriculum, that's where a lot of learning occurred, was just those conversations with other folks who are interested in natural resources and leadership and who are willing to push themselves. So that was huge for me.
Thank you, Phil. A few things that come to mind as Phil mentions that we do challenge each other. The part of creating a safe space is that we can challenge our biases. We can, there's often times when there's laughter, sometimes there's some tears. You got to be ready and willing to dig deep, I think, and ask some critical questions. And we really create the space for that. I think that's one scary thing about our society that I see today is that safe space is not as easy to find as it used to be. And so it's great to hear, Phil, that kind of, it surprised you, our approach to that. And we continue to do that and try to hold that safe space. How about you, Chris?
Well, you and Phil already covered the two things I was going to actually think about, but it was true that the shared experience and the camaraderie and the networking potential that was there was, I kind of expected a little bit of it, but not what I got. And what I got was a whole lot more than I expected. So it was really surprising and really nice because a lot of those relationships still continue today and will in the future. The safe space, the depth of content, and the vulnerability that's there, that was surprising and welcoming at the same time. And so you take away from those experiences a lot more. You may not be able to say it or know what you're thinking at that time, but later on, it's something that still sticks with you. And then it pops up, and maybe we'll get to this later, but in current position and future positions, even in life, a lot of these situations are popping up. And so keep referencing back to that experience. So that it still continues to surprise me.
That's cool.
So
Thank you, Chris.
I'd love to keep going on that
Yeah.
a little bit more, Chris, if you wouldn't mind. I'll keep picking on you, and then I'd love to hear from Tara on this one too. But how did the experience, with GCLI kind of affect your career and kind of life afterwards?
Yeah, before I was kind of a cowboy leader, didn't know really what I was doing, but I was trying to make things work and wasn't doing the best job that I could. And I started expanding it's kind of the origin story of how I got into it, I guess. And so I started expanding my network and found this niche with GCLI. And so going through all these experiences and having that space to think about and chat with others about what they're doing, how they're dealing with it, and then sharing my experiences, what I'm dealing with and how I've done that, and kind of gathering all that data, that basically molded how I think about what I'm doing now with projects and people. So now, when I entered the program, I was kind of in the ending stages of one of my career paths, and I just recently stepped into a new one, and I'm actually applying a lot of that and thinking about it. How it's all about understanding yourself, and so I was able to understand myself a little bit better, to understand then how to direct individuals, how to direct projects, just all around experience of trying to understand others, right? And first foremost, it's understanding yourself. I think that was the biggest takeaway from that, is to understand where I am and where I need to go. And that was pretty insightful and enlightening at the same time. And so now I'm applying this stuff every day, which is really, really cool. Just with clients and then contractors and just other employees, my boss, right? I mean, trying to understand that connection, that interaction is really substantive in my for my career. So it's really exciting. I hope that answers it.
That's great. Thanks so much, Chris. And Tara, you alluded to this a little bit kind of already, but you've had some big changes in your career and life since GCLI. So love to kind of hear a little bit from you about how GCLI affected those things for you.
Yeah, so definitely had a lot of learning in the last year and a half since GCLI. One of the unexpected components of GCLI was taking an internal look at leadership and understanding that, you know, in order to grow as a leader, you have to understand what kind of a work environment you're in, and that comes with a lot of vulnerability. And I think I definitely had a very vulnerable episode during our GCLI sharing moment, and kind of feeling that right now. But I had been looking for new employment and not having a whole lot of luck with state agencies back in Colorado. And but since then, Davey, Tree Expert Company, actually came to me with a job opportunity to become a recruiter for their residential and commercial service line. And once that opportunity presented itself, I took it. And things have been excellent. I was able to come back to Colorado from Wyoming, and I've been able to become a Colorado resident again, which has been an amazing turn in my mental health, and a change in my work environment has been really great. I feel more at peace with myself, leaving what I think was a somewhat toxic work environment where I wasn't enjoying my coworkers. And so that has been a lot of change. I've also had a lot of personal changes, leaving a long-term relationship. So that has also been a big adaptation in life. So yeah, I'll just say a whirlwind of change in the last, almost a whole year actually at this point. And now with this invitation, again, I said, I was actually just offered a promotion at work, which is amazing. Another opportunity coming around, which is awesome. So more change in the works, which is very exciting. So more leadership opportunity, with this opportunity, I'll get to help shape the minds and lives of young professionals coming into the arboriculture career in the green industry, which is so exciting. And that's really, it's just so exciting and amazing. And of course, with the help of the GCLI leadership team, having the exposure to I think one of the components that was really surprising was the just kind of lump it together was kind of the sensitivity training was really helpful, but I think a lot of people didn't quite expect.
Thank you, Tara. And I appreciate the vulnerability. Again, the opportunity to grow. We need to learn how to be vulnerable, share those kind of things. It is a safe space to do that. And both Tara and Chris, in my recollection, made some pretty big career changes afterward. And I think the GCLI experience, it sounded like, helped to maybe realize that change was necessary and maybe give them the courage and support to make those changes. So it's fun to see. And I think now with about 15 minutes left, I just kind of want to open it up to everybody. If you have thoughts that you want to share that brought up from here, from Tara or Chris, or any questions from you, Mark, John, and Jim. And remember that we're recording this, so we'll get to share it with folks. I know we spun this up really quick, trying to get this in July and one more in August. So we appreciate you guys finding us and contributing. And then Meg will help me make sure at the end, I'll put the application link in the chat. I also put the website in the chat. And then I'd encourage you to follow us on social media on LinkedIn and Twitter as well. But yeah, let's just kind of open it up. Raise your hand if you have a thought you want to share from what you've heard so far. And we'll give priority to Jim, John, and Mark if you guys have questions. I see Lee. Let's hear from Lee in Grand Rapids.
I mean, just listening to a couple of those conversations we just had, I think something that I didn't want to leave unsaid is, in addition to a number of the things that are unique about GCLI, one of them that Paul alluded to at the beginning is the idea that it's centered around personal organization and community leadership. And I think the different attendees might be coming into it with wanting to learn more about mastering their own leadership or, moving something forward in their organization. Or I came into it thinking more about how I wanted to interact with my community differently and spend my time. And so the whole experience leaves room for leadership in all of those environments. And you'll get out of it in how you want to concentrate on those various aspects. If you're more interested in how you can move things forward in the community, you'll gain the things from the conversations and modules and what have you to move things forward in your community. If you're more interested in your organization, you'll take away things that you can use there. And so leadership sometimes is a loaded term. And I wanted to say that this experience in particular leaves a lot of room for different aspects of leadership, while those are more formal aspects of leadership, or maybe they're more informal aspects of leadership where you have the ability to lead from the side as opposed to the top. And that's where I took away a lot of opportunities. So I wanted to throw that out there just because I think that's an important distinction.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you, Lee. Jim, did I see you raise your hand?
You did. A couple of things come to mind. I'd like to hear some conversation about what's involved time-wise during the course, and number two, something that we're wrestling with that I'd like to hear your thoughts on is I would say, my guess is that every one of us on this Zoom call are probably recognizing that climate change is real and a lot of it is man-made. We're running into situations where people say, oh, wildlife, you're a Democrat? Oh, that must be partisan. No, we don't want any part in it. So we're trying to figure out how to walk that line, get people involved and willing to do things without saying, well, gosh, you've got to think like we do.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So let's start with the first question. And Paul, can you answer a bit of the time commitment?
I can. Yeah. Thanks, Jim. So the GCLI is made up of 3 sessions. Prior to that, in November and in December, there will be 2 1-hour kind of orientation sessions just like this. Then in January, there's a 4-week asynchronous online part of the session. And this is material that will be set out for you every Monday for you to look at as you would like to. And then Friday at noon, at 12 noon Eastern time, there will be a live conversation. So 4 Fridays, actually, I should say 4 Fridays in January, but I think the last one is actually the first Friday of February. It's a live Q&A with the speakers from that week. So you'll watch a video, or you'll post on a bulletin board, a discussion board, but then you'll have a chance to live Q&A with the speakers from that week. So I would say, you make those best you can. If you can't make those are recorded and they are put on the online website. So we have it set out so it's only a couple hours a week. Most of them are kind of 15-minute videos or PowerPoints that you might watch. There might be a reading or 2. Then we take a week off and we go into what we call webinar week, where it's the week of February 12th. And every day from 12 to 1:30 Eastern time will be a live presentation and Q&A that whole week. So, there's 6 hours there, 6, 7 hours there for you as well. And then we take 2 weeks off, and then the 3.5 day session in Knoxville will conclude the session. So there's really those 3 pieces. Certain times, we realize everybody cannot make all of the online pieces. It is important that everybody is in person for the live session. But I would say probably, if you can't make the time to be there, or you have a time conflict with the 12 noon Eastern time on Friday live Q&A, you can always watch the recorded version of that. So, I guess commitment wise, I'd say it's probably somewhere on the average of about 40 to 50 hours total over a 3-month period.
Thank you, Paul. And a few other things that we do. The cohort will be anywhere between 20 and 30 most likely. And then we break up into smaller teams. So if you want a little more relationship touch points, we'll do that. Sometimes we'll spin up what we called a huddle, where we just once a week we would spin up an informal huddle, and anybody that showed up would do that. So we try to be we really want you to be connected with the cohort before you arrive in Tennessee together. We understand you're busy, but also it challenges you to carve out the time and space to invest in it. So does that answer your question, Jim? And then I'll go to Tommy. Your first question.
I think so. Let's see, I guess this is printed somewhere where we can take a look at when the sessions start and.
Yep. Yeah, we have that. If it's not on the website, we'll get it up there, but yeah.
Should be on the website, Jim, and then also some of the specifics are on the application itself. So that I copy and pasted in the chat some of the kind of time commitment details there.
Cool. Thank you, Meg. Tommy.
Thanks. I just wanted to quickly just build off of what Paul was sharing. So both Meg and I took distance graduate classes through Oregon State. And so one of the reasons that I was drawn to GCLI was I just saw Paul's experience with OSU's distance learning platform, eCampus. I just knew how good it was for working professionals. And so what I would say is that certainly it's incredibly important and really beneficial to be able to carve out that time for the in-person session. But the platform that GCLI uses currently through Oregon State is so very well developed. It's reflective of Paul's experience there in developing distance delivered curriculum. And to me, that was something that really stood out. It's what I'd hoped for, and it truly delivered there. So thanks.
Cool. Thanks, Tommy. Tara.
One of the things I also enjoyed was prior to our cohort meeting was that several folks we were broken up into groups and we were given a core leadership advisor of sorts. And we had kind of an icebreaker given to each of us so that we could get to know some of our cohort team folks prior to the sessions so that we could kind of get to know each other before we met in person. And I thought that was really great so that we had those relationships kind of built out beforehand. I don't know if you did that during the second group as part of the curriculum or not, but I thought that was really great. And Tommy was in my group and having him be as thoughtful as he is in any of the responses was really great. And so when we were meeting in person, he already had some ideas of where to go get lunch. When meeting up for our carpool to drive down to the campus, we went and had lunch at a delicious seafood place. It was great.
Awesome. Thanks, Tara. Yeah, and that has evolved over time. I think our first cohort, they dove into the team concept remotely before really well. And then you could see that gel when we came together at the Institute in Oregon. And then the second year, I think people were just so busy. COVID was opening up a little bit. And so the teams didn't work as effectively, it seemed. However, once we got together in Nashville, you couldn't get a word in edgewise. Everybody just immediately dove in and we're kind of diving into everything. So it's fun how that just evolves organically. And so we've got 7 minutes left. We're very respectful of your time and nothing like leaving politics till the end, right? This day and age. But I will say, Jim, those political conversations come up organically. It's something that we're all dealing with, right? The polarization. But we don't have a specific topic on it. I think the fact that is in my brain now that you brought it up, we might talk about it a little bit more, but that's our challenge, right? If we want to do good work that's better for climate action, regardless of whether you're wearing a red tie or a blue tie, we've got to shed those biases and understand the biases of where we're coming from to come together to make a difference. And that is the reality of where we live, work, and play today. So, I think I'll leave it at that unless anybody wants to expand on it. However, it is very relevant and you have an excellent point. And if we don't get out of our own doggone way with our political biases, then we're going to be stuck with a really shitty situation. So we have those open conversations about it. Tommy.
I'll just share that we had a speaker, Dodd Galbraith, who had a really interesting background spanning, all over the political spectrum with a lot of different political leadership. And so it was a really constructive, objective, and helpful contribution to that discussion. So I just wanted to say that we didn't dodge that issue at all, Jim. And I just found that to be really well done.
Awesome. Thanks, Tommy. Any other questions as we wrap stuff up in the next 5 minutes? Yes, John. And so, John, we have really focused, and a lot of our folks are from the United States, but we would love to have a Canadian partner join us. We've actually been approached by an individual in Mexico and an individual in, I think, East India, and we just haven't been able to navigate. The in-person is critical, so you must come to the in-person. And so we haven't been to navigate the visa stuff, but if you're interested, I would really encourage you to apply, and we'd love to have some of our North American friends, and hopefully we'll be worldwide at some point. We just haven't gotten there yet. Any questions, John or Mark, before we wrap up? I'm going to put up this nice slide that Meg created so we don't miss that. Yes, Tara, so the woman from Mexico, she started in our cohort and then she realized that she couldn't be there in person, and we started to sort out the visa thing and we just couldn't. So we offered her a spot in the second cohort, and other things were going on. So it's clearly a challenge, but I think we'll get there eventually. Whoops. Okay, any other stuff while I do the pretty slide?
No, this has been really good. Thanks. A lot of information that I'll take away and probably like think about a bit more. I might have questions later on that I might reach out and inquire about. But it was nice to hear all your stories and kind of like how it's helped you. And like even if I don't necessarily apply to it, I'm certainly going to share it with a few people. But right now, it's sounding really interesting, and so I certainly want to see the logistics, and I might have to make some asks to ensure I can commit the time to attending
Sure.
in person. But no, thanks a lot for hosting this, because yeah, I kind of stumbled upon it through social media, and it's certainly more than met my expectations of something that could support my career growth. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, John. And we also, you can reach us if you have any questions at info@greencommunitiesleadership.org. And yeah, it's fun to hear that getting the word out on social media is working.
Just if you might jump in, Lance, I just wanted to say to Jim and to Mark and to John, for myself, I really got a lot out of this. It's been a huge thread for me this last year, and it's given me a lot of energy and excitement. I do encourage you all to be part of it for next year. You each bring things that we would like to hear, and I'd like to meet you and spend time with you and learn from you too. So I encourage you to apply and spread the word too. Maybe you have colleagues who would be interested in this. And thanks for coming today.
Awesome. Thank you, Phil. Any closing words from anybody? We really appreciate all of your time. Thank you for joining us, finding us, help spread the word. And we hope maybe we'll see your application soon and see you in Tennessee in a few months. All right. Stay cool, everybody. Thank you, Meg, and everybody for pulling this together. And we will see you next month, possibly at our next info session. And we will be in touch online and through the interwebs.
One question before you go.
Oh, yeah.
Is the next info session basically the same format or same discussion?
That's a really good question. So it will be a similar format, a very open discussion. We'll have some different cohort members available for you to learn from, but it will be same, really open, informal, conversational session. Yes. All right. Thank you all very much. Take care. We'll see you soon.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Be safe, Tara.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.